Hello and welcome to Unacademy's daily newspaper digest. A very warm good morning to everyone. My name is Harshmeet Singh and we are back once again to analyze the most important news stories from today's Hindu newspaper. We have chosen up topics from all the different subjects, and in the end, as always, we also have a practice quiz for all of you. So do stay till the end so that you can test whether you have been able to learn and grasp whatever we have discussed today. These are the topics that we have taken up. First, we'll discuss about the issue of human smuggling, meaning you have seen in the past few weeks a lot of people have been sent back from the US. The people who had entered US illegally, US ever since Donald Trump has become the president has been doing this with every country, sending back all the illegal immigrants that had come in. So we'll be discussing that particular issue. Then we'll be discussing the connection between environment and AI. All these new machines and AI technology that are coming up now, how are they harming the environment? That is what the second topic is all about. Then we'll focus on the issue of third language. The next topic will be about the High Court ruling about the rules to be followed by the police while arresting women at night. And the last topic will be about the shift of women that we are seeing from unpaid to paid work, which is a good sign for the economy going forward. Let's start with the first one then. You would have heard this term in the past few weeks become very commonly used, called kabutarbazi. Now, what exactly is kabutarbazi? Kabutarbazi means there are certain agents, and you will find them across the entire country, who in return for money or in exchange for money will arrange for you to be sent to a foreign country illegally. Let's say you have to go to US. Now, going to US officially means you have to apply for a visa. There are a lot of documents. You have to tell them why are you going, your reason, etc. And then the US government decides whether to offer you a visa or not. In some cases, when people do not have those kind of documentation, when they don't have the bank balance, when they don't have any proof of employment, they are just going there in a hope that they will be able to get a job. They are not given an official visa. This is where they contact agents that take lakhs and even crores of rupees in certain cases to ensure that they enter the American continent, or rather America, in an illegal manner. This is called kabutarbazi, and they go through the forest, they go through a lot of countries eventually to reach America. You would have seen that in the movie called Donkey. Now, ever since Donald Trump has become the president once again, he has made it his core issue and objective that I will be sending back all the illegal immigrants that has entered our country. This is where the article says that there is a need to have stringent laws about that within the country. First, the article says that we need to have a check on these kind of agents who are taking money in return of which they are actually sending people to these countries. It brings a very bad name to India because we do not want to be remembered as a country whose people are running away from our own country in terms of better employment opportunities, even though they do not have any legal documentation. The article talks about the Immigration Act of 1983, but says that it does not specifically address the issue of human smuggling. Let's see what are the important aspects covered in this particular article. So it talks about how the human trafficking angle has been involved in this. How many Indian immigrants right now have entered countries in Europe, US, and they go through very, very dangerous routes. There are so many Indians who actually lose their life while drowning in the Mediterranean Sea while trying to illegally cross over the border. And these are mostly youth that are not that educated because they do not have a degree, because of which they do not really get a job. Now, what about the laws that we have? As per the article, we have something called the Immigration Act of 1983. That governs legal migration from India but does not define explicitly what will be human smuggling. Now, if you look at state-wise issue in India, across the country there's only one single state that has a law specifically about this kind of an issue. That is Punjab. We have a law in Punjab called Punjab Travel Professionals Regulation Act 2012, which is again the only state that has a law that addresses travel agents that are engaging in this illegal practice. Apart from this, no other state has this law. The author says that there is time for other states also to look into it. You would have seen the people who are being sent back from US on flights to India, and there have been so much issues about how they are being sent back. They are handcuffs. Many people saying they are not criminals. They should not be treated like that. But if you see the people who are sent back, a lot of them belong to Punjab. Then they belong to Haryana. Some of them from Gujarat also and other parts of the country. This is why Punjab specifically has been the only state where they have made a law while other states have not. The author says that there is a need to have a central law so that the parliament can make a law which is valid across the entire country. Not just this, the author says that a law such as this should clearly define what is human smuggling and should have strict penalties for it. It should also make a specific regulatory body to monitor this specific thing, because right now these kind of cases are taken up by CBI or state police. So we do not have an authority that is specifically looking into this particular matter. We also have to strengthen cooperation with other countries. See, it's not just about illegal migration. It's also about Indians going to other countries and not being treated well. You would have all heard these news stories, Indians working in Saudi Arabia, UAE, and their passports are taken away from them by their employers, so they can't run away, they can't even come back into the country. For all of this, we need a proper specific law, and we need to engage with other countries where Indians go and work in large numbers. These are the important pointers covered in this article. Now, it is my responsibility to give you additional data, additional information so that we can cover this holistically. So let's go beyond this item and see what exactly are the other specific information and pieces and bits that you must remember and understand. Now, human smuggling is not really an issue specifically confined to India. It is an issue that we see in a lot of developing countries. See, whenever there is a country where a citizen thinks that they don't have enough opportunities to earn within the country, they would obviously go outside in search for a better life, in search for better employment. Those who can afford to do it legally, they do it legally by applying for visa, applying for jobs, while others who can't afford to do it legally try and find out illegal methods for that. Because of which we do have international conventions to stop this. There's something called UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, where India is a signatory. It talks about human trafficking, but India has not implemented that completely. We have human smuggling routes that involve a lot of these countries like Middle East, African countries, European countries. There is a very infamous route through Mediterranean to enter Europe through Africa. Then we also have UN Protocol Against Smuggling of Migrants. This criminalizes smuggling and protects human rights or protects rights of the migrants. But again, despite all of these, we have seen this increasing trend in American and European politics. A lot of right-wing politicians coming to power are focusing on this issue of illegal migration, including Donald Trump. Their argument is that because of people coming into our country illegally, our own citizens don't get to have jobs that are supposed to be for us. And that is why they have been cracking down on this illegal migration. Now, India has signed some MOUs, that is Memorandum of Understanding, with some other countries so that our citizens are treated well, our migrants are treated well in those countries. We have India UAE MOU on labor cooperation, we have India UK partnership, we have India Canada. Now, India Canada is not an agreement that we have, but India Canada is a case where diplomatic tensions increase due to migration. A lot of Indians migrate to Canada legally and illegally. So you have seen how migration can be a very touchy issue between the two countries. It can improve the relationship as it has in case of India and many of the Gulf countries, and it can also deteriorate a relationship as we have seen in case of India and Canada. So that is why it's a pretty touchy issue and the government should look into it very carefully. As I said, our foreign relationship depend a lot on people going outside our country because they are representing our country, and this is where we need to be careful and we need to make stringent regulations for who can or cannot go outside. Before we move on to the second article for the day, a quick reminder. We have a lot of resources that can be extremely helpful for your UPSC CSC preparation. For example, you can download a current affair magazines and notes. For any other information about this, you can call on this given number. This includes monthly current affair magazine, NCRT notes summaries, current affairs PDFs, all of these are available to you. And you can check out the description of the video for more information. Also, if you're looking to join any of our offline batches, there are multiple offline batches beginning in Delhi, Prayagraj, Patna. Whichever suits you, you can consider joining those. There are new batches starting on the given dates, 3rd of March, 4th of March, Karol, Bagh, Mukherjee, Nagar. Then these were in Delhi. And then Prayagraj and Patna also have new batches starting. You can consider these. Again, for any other information, check out the description of this video. The second article that we have here is about the connection between AI and environment. It's a pretty interesting article because usually when we talk about AI, we don't consider the environmental aspect of it. Now, what exactly is the author talking about? See, all these AI tools that are now emerging, be it OpenAI that runs ChatGPT, be it DeepSeek, or all the other companies that are working in this field, all of them require to train their machines. The systems are trained in humongous models. They are given a lot of information, humongous amounts of information, so that they can be trained in order to give you an exact response that you were hoping for. Training all of this comes at a very severe cost to the environment because there are humongous machines that are running day and night. There are data centers to store a lot of information, so much so that data centers right now contribute significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. There is a need, that is why the author says there is a need to have energy efficient data centers. Think about this. When you upload some information, you upload some photo on Instagram or WhatsApp or Facebook, whatever, that information gets stored somewhere. Where is it that it is getting stored? Google, Facebook, all of them have their data centers, means these huge places where all that data gets stored. These data centers have to be cooled because if you are not cooling them, if you are not maintaining a temperature, they will go bad and there will be a lot of heat generated. So a lot of energy is required just to keep these data centers running. The more advanced that you go in AI, the more AI models that you use, the more training that you have to give these machines, the more energy you are consuming. And the more energy that you are consuming, the more you are harming the environment. So this entire AI thing is specifically not very good for the environment. The article says that if you have an impact or if you assess the impact that it has on the environment, you will see there are multiple stages of this cycle where environment is harmed. For example, infrastructure development, when you develop data centers, you harm the environment. Then chip manufacturing, again, it's not that easy on the environment. Chip manufacturing, semiconductor chip manufacturing comes at a cost. Cloud data center operations, I told you, keeping the cloud data centers running, cooling them, maintaining a certain temperature, and then training of these models. All of these requires huge amount of energy, which is why all of these have a negative impact on the environment. Here are some statistics that may surprise you. Right now, data centers contribute 1% of the global greenhouse gas emission. Now, 1% of the entire emission is a big thing. Most of these data centers are located in developed countries, not in developing countries, because the companies believe that the policies of developed countries are more suitable for them. So they prefer setting up these data centers in those developed countries only. Electricity demand from these AI related data centers is expected to double by 2026. The training models or training large AI models requires humongous amounts of CO2 emission. Like ChatGPT 3 emits about 552 tons of CO2, which is equivalent to annual emission of dozens of cars. So again, as you can see, there is a significant amount of emission cost that is associated with AI. This is again where you see the difference between the rich and the poor. Because if you ask yourself who exactly would be using this AI technology, think about it. Would the people in the developed world, would they be using this AI technology more as compared to developing world or least developed countries? And then who is bearing the cost of climate change? This is again where you will see that while the responsibility or the blame for climate change is on the developed country, the cost is borne by those who have no connection, who are not even taking advantage of this. Now, this is why AI has a specific role in climate change. We are not even talking about the e-waste that we will have to handle because of this increasing demand for chips and these processing units. As you know, all these chips that are being made, all the hardware that is being made has a specific life. For example, solar panels which are made, they have a specific life. After their life ends, you have to recycle them. But right now there is no specific way to recycle all of this. And this is where it all adds up to this waste, e-waste, and climate change becomes worse and worse. So we have to go forward and think about climate sustainability, environment sustainability of this kind of technology. Over 190 countries have adopted non-binding ethical AI guidelines. The keyword is non-binding. But these guidelines do not talk specifically about environment sustainability of AI and this technology. We have EU, we have US who have such kind of laws to curb environmental footprint of AI. But for most other countries, you do not have these kind of laws operational. And this is where the problem starts, and this is where the world has to come together. This is what the article talks about. Now let's take a step ahead and see what are the other things related to this particular topic that we can understand. Now, if you look at India and India's AI sector specifically, although we are not the world leader, but we are also growing significantly. We are encouraging a lot of the companies in India to take steps towards catching this AI train as quickly as possible. Our AI sector is growing rapidly. Companies such as Alliance, Nvidia investing in India. Although we do not have a comprehensive AI sustainable policy for carbon emissions, but we are one of those countries that has worked very well in changing our policies so that our nationally determined contributions are met. As you know, India has already announced that we will be achieving net zero by 2070 or earlier. And this is again in line with that particular aim. So India can show the world also how can we marry environment sustainability with emerging technologies such as AI. It's not that other countries or other companies are not doing this. There are certain good examples that we can follow. For example, Google has DeepMind, which uses AI for wind energy forecasting, etc., renewable energy. So it's a word, or it's a progress in the right direction, because they are using their AI technology to be more environmentally sustainable. Microsoft AI initiatives focus on being carbon neutral. Then there are optimized AI models, means using lesser energy, they can also reduce emissions by 100 to 1000 times. So it's not that we do not have a solution to it. The world needs AI, the world needs this new technology, but it has to be more sustainable, and we have to define best practices before we go ahead. This was our second article. The third article talks about a sensitive and controversial issue in India called third language. Now, three language policy or the third language is something that you would all be familiar with. In case you don't know, let me tell you what exactly is this. The three language formula is a formula that came up in the first national education policy, under which the policy suggested that in the schools across the country at least three languages should be taught. Three languages include English, your local language, means the language where you are living, and some language which is not of your state. For example, let's say in schools in Tamil Nadu, you should be taught Tamil, which you would be, then English, and then third language. It can be Hindi, it can be Marathi, etc. That is the three language formula. However, the fact is that if you look at schools across the country, and you can compare this with your own school, when you were in school, were you actually taught three languages? Mostly the answer will be no. The three language formula, although suggested in the 1968 National Education Policy, has not really been implemented as widely as the policymakers had hoped for. The idea was it will promote multilingualism. More than that, it will bridge the divide between the different states having different languages. See, India, since its past, since our independence, has always had this issue of languages. In the Constituent Assembly, there was this big debate about what should be the national language. And when people could not come to an agreement, we decided that we will not have any national language. Let's go with official language. So it was decided that Hindi will be the official language along with English. However, Hindi and English were official languages with the condition that English would be temporary. And English would go away after 15 years, but it did not. English still remains along with Hindi as the official language of the country. And now, you all know there is a divide between the states that speak Hindi and states where Hindi is not spoken. For example, if you look at Tamil Nadu politics, if you look at how the politics has emerged in the state, in Tamil Nadu, Hindi has always been a very touchy issue. Multiple state governments over the years have alleged that the center government is imposing Hindi on our state. And this has been the issue with other states in the south as well. Kerala, Karnataka, all of them have argued that Hindi is being imposed on them. And they have opposed these kind of impositions. If you look at the history of three language formula, it was first introduced in 1968's National Education Policy. It mandated teaching of Hindi in non-Hindi speaking states. In 2020 National Education Policy, the one that was introduced recently, it also talked about three language formula, but it said no language should be imposed on any state. So while the earlier National Education Policy talked about teaching of Hindi, non-Hindi speaking states, the current education policy, the third one, that does not try to impose Hindi or any language on any state. Now, as I said earlier, even before this, many states did not practice a three language formula thing. You also know that in your school, three languages were not always taught. In Tamil Nadu, for example, they have usually followed two language policy, Tamil and English, and they have rejected the imposition of Hindi. Because understand, policy of the government is not a binding document. Policies are suggestive in nature. Binding documents are laws. This is why even if National Education Policy says something, it's not binding that every state will accept it. Now, there are multiple challenges in implementing the three language formula. And these challenges include, first, India's learning outcomes are already low. You would have seen these newspaper reports every few months that a class 5 student cannot read this, or 70% class 2 students can't write alphabets. All these are reality checks. We have annual status of education report, ASAR. Now, ASAR is a report which is very credible. It is prepared by NGO called Pratham. So it's a report that surveys rural schools basically. In rural India, what is the status of education? So the report in 2022 said 60% of class 5 students could not read a class 2 level text. 2023 report found out 25% of the youth could not read a class 2 text fluently. So the learning outcomes anyways are not up to the mark. On top of this, if you introduce a third language, that now you have to read three languages, it becomes even more problematic. So while it's considerable, while it's commendable that the government is trying to bridge the language gap, while it is very optimistic, but the fact is that if even the most basic stuff is troubling the students in achieving good marks, why do you want to burden the students with one more language? That is one big problem. Second, there will always be a financial and administrative burden. One additional language means one additional teacher. So you have to find teachers for that. You have to implement that, especially in the rural schools where you anyways don't have teachers, a lot of vacancy. It is not really feasible. Right now, as per 2022 report on budgeted expenditure on education, 85% of the expenditure in education is covered by the states, only 15% by the center. And states anyways say that we don't have enough budget. In that, if you are putting an additional burden of having one more language and one more teacher, that is not really the correct way forward, because the states would not be interested in implementing that. Then we have an issue of resistance being shown by states such as Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Karnataka. This has always been a very contentious issue. Ever since the time of the Constituent Assembly, which language should be used, which language, or should we have a national language or not, and it remains even today. In Tamil Nadu, for example, every few years you would see certain protests against the imposition of Hindi. Then there is limited language proficiency gains, means even the schools which did implement the three language formula, it did not go up to such a level where the students would become proficient in the three languages. So they became proficient in the local language, in English, but the third language, even when they were introduced, they had very, very limited proficiency. So on top of that, if you are using a lot of resources just to make sure that on paper I am teaching three languages, that does not make sense, because it is not giving the kind of results that were hoped for. The suggestion is, rather than that, focus on skill, rather than that, focus on numeracy, maths, etc., which would have much more practical application going forward, rather than focusing and fulfilling this idea that we have to have third language as well. This is what the article covers. Now let's take a step ahead and see some other bits and pieces of information related to this topic beyond this particular article. If you look at our constitution and where constitution talks about languages, there are certain articles and laws that you must remember. First, article 343 that declares Hindi as the official language of the country. Apart from that, we have a National Language 1963 Act which says that continued use of English will be allowed for official purposes indefinitely. So it used to be for 15 years after constitution began, and then it has been increased and it has now gone on indefinitely. This is mainly to appease the states which are non-Hindi speaking states, because when the 15-year period was coming to an end, we saw large scale protests in states such as Tamil Nadu, and they demanded that use of English should continue, and that is why it has continued indefinitely. However, there is no doubt over the fact that Hindi, for example, has been given a special place in the constitution. If you look at article 351, it says that the union is encouraged to promote the spread of Hindi while respecting linguistic diversity. Means for no other language in the entire constitution, for no other language, the government is given the responsibility to spread its usage. It is only for Hindi that the government has been asked to promote its use. For no other language has the government been given the responsibility. So Hindi has been given a kind of a priority status, you like it or not, in the constitution. Now if you look at India, India is anyways well known as a multilingual country. If you look at some data from 2011 census that I have here for you, as per 2011 census, 26% Indians are bilingual, means no two languages. 7% are trilingual. In urban India, obviously the bilingual population is more, 44%. In rural India, 22% people are bilingual. It's very obvious when you go to urban areas, means you may have requirement of more jobs, so you are engaged in a formal sector where you would be required to speak English apart from your regional language, so you would have more bilingual. But if you look at trilingual, this is where the real issue is. Despite having the three language formula for such a long time, only 7% Indians are identified as trilingual, means knowing three languages. This is where we have to understand that even after so many decades, this three language formula doesn't really seem to have the kind of impact that we were hoping for. If you look at other countries, how they are dealing with this, China, Mandarin is their official language, but they still allow Cantonese, which is a regional language. In Europe, most European students learn at least 2 foreign languages. Japan, South Korea also give priority to English while teaching in their school. So it's not that India is the only one grappling with this issue, just that our problem is of much more variety, much more diversity. Sorry. India also has much more linguistic diversity than most other countries, and this is why the problem is not really that straightforward for India to solve. These are certain suggestions that you can write in the mains answer. We first have to focus on mother tongue and English, develop proficiency there, and then maybe focus on other languages as well. State autonomy should be allowed. It should not become an issue of a state government thinking that they are being burdened or they are being imposed a certain language. And we can also improve the pedagogy, means the way in which it is taught. We can use technology so that we can have much better outcomes amongst the students rather than forcing it upon them. The next article is about a recent ruling by Madras High Court about arresting women at night. Now you all know there are certain rules and regulations about whether women can be arrested at night, means after sunset, after 8 p.m. can they be arrested or not. Now what exactly is the ruling? Let me first tell you in 1 or 2 lines what is the ruling in the court, and then we'll discuss in detail. So the common law in India is that after 8 p.m. if the policemen have to arrest a woman, there are rules such as a women constable should be available. The rule also is that magistrate's permission has to be taken first, and the male policeman should not touch the female who is being arrested unless it is absolutely necessary. So what happened here was that there was an arrest done in the state of a woman after 8 p.m. There was no women constable available. So the matter went to the court. The court said that yes, women constables should be available after 8 p.m. to arrest. However, if you don't follow these rules, if the police does not follow these rules, that does not mean that the arrest will be illegal automatically. Means the court said that these are directions given for the police to follow, yes, but if the police for some reason is not able to follow those, that does not mean the arrest is illegal, that does not mean that the person will be released. No. The police has to explain why they were not able to follow the rule. And if the court is fine with this, then the arrest will be allowed. That is what the gist of this entire article is. The court says that Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, it is BNSS 2023, is directory and not mandatory. Means the rules about women arrest are only direction, these are not mandatory. Means if you don't comply with this, that does not automatically make the arrest illegal. It's not an illegal arrest automatically. The court will see whether the police had certain reasons that they could not arrange these provisions. If that is the case, arrest will still be legal. Now, if you look at what the law is about arresting women after sunset, section 43 of BNSS says that there should be restriction on arrest of women between sunset and sunrise except in exceptional cases. If arrest has to be made, then prior magistrate approval is required, and it should ensure that there is women's safety in police custody. Apart from that, when we used to have CRPC, it stated that women cannot be physically touched by male officers under exception unless the circumstances demand it. But again, the court said that these are not mandatory, these are just directions. Means if these are not followed, it doesn't mean that there will be automatic release of the prisoner. Because in certain serious cases, when there is a heinous crime committed and women has to be arrested immediately, you can't just say that no, first arrange a women constable, first arrange a magistrate to get this in writing. Madras High Court said that after 8 p.m. arrest is illegal. However, this provision is directory and not mandatory. Police officer must try to adhere to, but if they don't adhere to this rule, this does not automatically invalidate the arrest. The officer must be able to justify why they did that. In serious cases, they can go ahead and arrest the person even without this. They just have to make sure that the safety of the person is kept in mind. They should not compromise on the safety, but even if you don't follow this rule, it should not mean that you would have to release the women. There are multiple cases in the past as well with regards to the same topic about women arrest. For example, in 1989 rather, we had a law commission report which recommended women should not be arrested at night except in extreme urgency. 1996 again, the CRPC inserted this section which had similar safeguards for women. Now, as you know, CRPC does not exist. It has been replaced by new versions of the law. The Supreme Court also in the past has taken same view. Supreme Court noted that strict compliance should create would create practical difficulties in heinous crimes. Again, if a very serious, very heinous crime is committed in the night, you can't say that no, I can't arrest the women because women constable is not available. Let her come in the morning, then I'll arrest you. In case of heinous crime, when the arrest has to be immediate, imagine a terror attack being carried out and there's a woman involved in that. Would you tell the women that no, don't worry, carry out whatever you are doing, I'll come to you when the sun rises, because the law doesn't allow it. So we have to obviously make these exceptions, and this is what the Supreme Court also had said in the past. Now, if you take a step ahead and go beyond this write-up, there are a lot of constitutional provisions and international conventions regarding this. We have right to life under Article 21. That also includes right to dignity and protection from arbitrary detention. Again, the key word is arbitrary detention. But if the detention is for a reason, then it does not give you protection. Article 39 under directory principle mandates that the state should ensure gender justice as well. Apart from this, we have international conventions such as UN Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women that protects women from arbitrary arrest. Again, all these have keyword arbitrary. So if the arrest is not arbitrary, if it is for a good reason, then these do not give the kind of protection for women that would enable any discrimination. In these cases, arrests can be made. The High Court ruling that has been given may have certain negative consequences as well. For example, it may lead to misuse as well, Because when the police is told that this is not mandatory, you can still arrest women, that means you are giving a free hand now, because they just have to explain what happened later on. They can give false explanation that no, it was urgent. So this has a risk of being misused. There is a potential that it might dilute women laws. It might have, or it might need more clarity. For example, the court said that it is allowed in exceptional circumstances. Now, what exactly are exceptional circumstances? There is no definition of it. Who will define it? This is again an issue that can be a negative outcome of the High Court ruling in the long run. The last article for today is about a report that has come out from the National Statistics Office, which talks about more and more women shifting from unpaid domestic work. Now, as you know, one of the big problems that we have in India is we have a big chunk of unpaid labor. Women who are housemakers, women who are homemakers, who are actually working in the home, not getting paid against it. Their contribution to the economy is not counted in the GDP, which is why many people say that our informal economy is much bigger. Because a lot of women are deployed in home and household work, and their contribution to GDP is not counted. Now, the good part is that many of them are shifting towards paid employment and paid workforce. This is what is highlighted in this survey called Time Use Survey 2024. It is conducted by a government authority, NSO, National Statistics Office, that works under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. It's a good sign for the economy. It shows a decline in the women in unpaid domestic work, means they are spending more time in paid employment. Participation of women in employment-related activities increased from 21.8 to 25% from 2019 to 2024. So, women participation workforce has increased. The good part is even amongst the men, this number has increased. So, it's not that not that only women or more women are going to work. More men also are going to work. Let's look at some of the important findings from this particular survey from the NSO. Now, there are a lot of facts, a lot of data, a lot of numbers. You don't have to remember all the numbers. In the prelims, anyways, they don't ask you specific numbers. They can ask you trend. For example, in the prelims, they can ask you that the number of women in the workforce have increased from 2019 onwards. You can say yes. You don't have to remember the exact number from here to here. In the mains answer writing, if you remember the number, you can quote, but in the prelims specifically, number specific data is not important because it's not easy to remember. Focus on the trend, whether it is increasing or decreasing. So, as per the report, women spent 305 minutes per day on unpaid domestic work in 2024. Earlier, it used to be 315. So, you can say just a 10-minute decrease, but still it is a decrease, it's an average. Number of women engaged in employment increased to 25%. There is still a gender gap. Number of men employed in paid employment is 75%. There is still a big gap that has to be reduced, but it is still a good sign going forward. Again, you don't have to remember the exact data for prelims. For mains, you can. Here again, I am quoting a lot of this data from what the survey has told us. Women spend 137 minutes per day on caregiving for household members compared to only 75 for men. Means, despite more women opting for work, even then the responsibility mainly of handling the household is on women only. So majority of the household work is still being done by women. If you look at leisure and self-care, women spend 164 minutes per day on leisure activities compared to 177 spent by men. Overall time allocation also, self-care maintenance activities accounted for 708 minutes. You don't have to remember all this data. This is just the important finding of this survey by NSO. Let me give you some other information that is more important for you related to this. If you look at the other data from other sources of the government, for example, we have periodic labor force survey. It says that female labor force participation in India was 37%, which is much below the global average. So out of 100 people working in India, 37 are women. The reason being a lot of patriarchal challenges, women being responsible mainly or being asked to be responsible mainly for the household, not being paid at par, safety concerns, patriarchal mindset. Because of all of this, number of women working in India are much lower than the global average. If you look at the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, etc., they have a much higher women employment rate of 60%. So out of hundreds, more than 60 women actually go and work in these countries. The reason being that the government takes care of the child care, child support. There are government creche facilities, so your children are safe and they are being taken care of. You don't have to be responsible for them. If you look at South Asian countries on the other hand, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, obviously, they have much lower female participation in the labor force because of all the issues that we discussed, the patriarchal mindset, women not being allowed to go out to work, because of which our overall economy also suffers. And this is where countries like India can learn from global practices. There are government initiatives that have been taken in the past few years. For example, the Maternity Benefit Act has increased paid maternity leave in case of the child to 26 weeks. That allows a woman to take the time off from work and then rejoin. We also have Stand Up India scheme, under which easier loans are given to women who are employing or who give jobs to other people who are entrepreneurs. There are women's self-help groups. There are initiatives such as Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. All of these being introduced by the government to give a push to women in workforce so that we can have more women participating in the workforce and contributing to the economy in the long run. There are still challenges that remain. As I told you, informal sector still dominates. Women are working in the informal sector, lab job security, they can be kicked out of the job tomorrow. There are no fixed working hours. They have to work for long hours to earn wages. Lack of childcare support. If the child is small, they don't know where the child has to be kept. They can't afford a creche. There is no one at home to take care of the child. And there's a big wage gap as well. It has been proven beyond doubt that for the same job with the same capability, women are paid lesser than men. So this wage suppression also is a big issue between male and female. This was our session for the Hindu newspaper analysis for today. I have a few practice questions for you. Let's see if you were able to get all this information in your mind. First, consider the following statements about human smuggling. First, the Immigration Act 1983 explicitly defines human smuggling and includes provision for regulation. If you remember, we discussed this is a big problem with the act. We do have an act, Immigration Act 1983, but it does not define human smuggling. First is wrong, you can eliminate the others. The answer then becomes B. Punjab has the Punjab Travel Profession Regulation Act, only state related act like this, yes. India is signatory to UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, yes. First is wrong, second and third here are correct. With reference to human smuggling, which of the statements are correct? First, human smuggling, human trafficking are generally defined as the same crime? No, not as the same crime. India has a national level law specifically criminalizing human smuggling. Do we have a specific crime or do we have a national level law? No. UN Protocol Against Smuggling of Migrants aims to prevent smuggling of migrants while protecting their rights? Yes. This is the correct statement. We have a UN protocol for this. India does not have a central government law. In fact, the article is hoping that this becomes a reality. Next, with reference to environmental impact of AI, consider the following. First, data centers contribute 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. No, 10% is too much. 1%. Energy demand from AI-based data center expected to decrease by 2026. Decrease? No. It will increase. It will double by 2026. Training AI model like GPT-3 result in carbon emissions comparable to that of multiple cars annually? Yes. We discussed this. The answer is 3 only, which is B. I hope you are getting these right. The best way is when you read this question, pause on the screen, think about the answer and then move forward to see if you're able to get it right. Which of the following are recommended practices for reducing AI environmental footprint? Number 1, using renewable energy powered data centers, implementing optimized AI models that require less computational power, expanding AI infrastructure without regulatory oversight. No. If you are doing it without regulation, that's always a negative thing. If you want to have better sustainability, you have to have oversight, you have to have regulation. Without regulatory means you are actually giving them a free hand. 1 and 2, A is correct. Consider the following statements about India's 3-language policy. Number 1, 3-language policy was introduced by National Education Policy 2020? No, 1968. Policy mandates the teaching of Hindi in all states including Tamil Nadu? No, it does not mandate Hindi. It says 3 languages, doesn't say that Hindi has to be done. 2020 National Education Policy allows the states to choose their language provided at least 2 languages are Indian languages. Yes, that is what the National Education Policy 2020 is. 3 languages. You can choose a third one. 2 of them should be at least Indian. Third can be French, Spanish, Italian, doesn't really matter. With reference to language policy in India, consider the following. Article 343 declares Hindi as the official language. Yes. Official Language Act 1963 provides for continued use of English for official purpose. Yes. 3 language formulas mentioned in the constitution. No. We discussed it's a part of national education policy, not mentioned in the constitution. The answer thus is 1 and 2. A is correct, not the third one. With reference to arrest of women in India, consider the following. Number 1. Section 46 of CRPC prohibits the arrest of women after sunset and before sunrise. Does it prohibit? No. It does not prohibit, it gives certain directions. Prior approval of magistrate is required for women's arrest at night under Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Samhita. Yes. Supreme Court has upheld strict compliance with night arrest in all cases. In all cases, no. They have said that in certain cases, exception can be made. In certain heinous crimes, the exceptions can be made. That is what the Supreme Court had said. This was our session for the day. I hope you liked it. If you are new here, do hit the like and the subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Harshmeet Singh. Do join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. once again. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.